Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to our reading of the Gospel of St. Luke. We are in the King James Version, and we are up to a brief chapter of chapter 15, which is mostly Jesus talking, trying to elaborate on this new social and theological worldview that he has been propounding through his brief ministry so far. This is chapter 15, which will include one of the most famous stories in the New Testament, so you'll be on familiar ground there. Then drew near unto him all the publicans and sinners to hear him. And the Pharisees and scribes murmured, saying, This man receiveth sinners, and eateth with them. And he spoke this parable unto them, saying, What man of you, having 100 sheep, if he lose one of them, doth not leave the 99 in the wilderness, and go after that which is lost, until he find it? And when he hath found it, he layeth it on his shoulders, rejoicing. And when he cometh home, he calleth together his friends and neighbors, saying unto them, Rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep which was lost. I say unto you that likewise joy shall be in heaven over one sinner that repenteth, more than over 99 just persons who need no repentance. Also, or he says either that woman having 10 pieces of silver, if she loses one piece, doth she not light a candle, and sweep the house, and seek diligently till she find it? And when she hath found it, she calleth her friends and neighbors together, saying, Rejoice with me, for I have found the piece which I had lost. Likewise I say unto you, there is joy in the presence of the angels of God over one sinner that repenteth. I want you to notice here, I know it's a little bit silly, but I want you to notice there's a drastic difference between those two examples. They aren't really parables, but there's a drastic difference between the two of them. A woman has 10 pieces of silver. We can assume that's her whole life's work, her whole life savings. She loses one of them, and she sweeps out the whole house to find it. What is her thinking? Well, I haven't gone anywhere. This is my savings. There are no banks, so I keep it here. So I've lost it. I can't locate it. It must be here. It must be here in this house. So you sweep out the house and examine it. Whereas the other story is someone with a flock in the wilderness, a flock of 100 sheep in the wilderness. And maybe you're leading them into pasture and you notice, you do a head count and you're down one sheep. In this story, the shepherd leaves the 99, the flock of 99 in the wilderness and goes hunting for the one lost sheep, which is not normal. That is really bizarre behavior. Jesus says, which of you, when you encounter this situation that hasn't done this, I would be amazed if anyone who's ever read this story has done this. Anyone at his time, first of all, Pharisees aren't herding sheep in the field anyway, or in the wilderness, but they're paying someone to do it, and they would fire a shepherd that did that. It's the reason I say that it's a silly objection is because obviously Jesus is using this to illustrate an otherworldly view. And he goes on with one of the most famous stories in the New Testament. So we'll just finish up with that. This is the entire rest of chapter 15. It's just Jesus speaking. And he said, A certain man had 2 sons. And the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the portion of goods that falleth to me. In other words, give me my inheritance. And he divided unto them his living. And not many days after, the younger son gathered all together and took his journey into a far country, and there wasted his substance on riotous living. And when he had spent all, there arose a mighty famine in that land, and he began to be in want. And he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country, and he sent him into his fields to feed swine. And he would fain have filled his belly with the husk that the swine did eat, and no man gave unto him. And when he came to himself, he said, How many hired servants of my father have bread enough and to spare, and I perish with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and will say unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before thee, and am no more worthy to be called thy son. Make me as one of thy hired servants. And he arose and came to his father. But when he was yet a great way off, his father saw him, and had compassion, and ran, and fell on his neck, and kissed him. And the son said unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven, and in thy sight I am no more worthy to be called thy son. But his father said to his servants, Bring forth the best robe, and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand, and shoes on his feet, and bring hither the fatted calf, and kill it, and let us eat and be merry. For my son was dead, and is alive again. He was lost, and is found. And they began to make merry. Now his elder son was in the field, and as he came and drew nigh on the house, he heard music and dancing. He called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And he said unto him, Thy brother is come, and thy father has killed the fatted calf, because he hath received him safe and sound. And he was angry, the older brother was angry, and would not go in. Therefore came out his father, and entreated him. And he answering said to his father, Lo, these many years do I serve thee, neither transgressed I at any time thy commandment. Yet thou never gavest me a kid, that I might make merry with my friends. But as soon as this thy son was come, which hath devoured thy living with harlots, thou hast killed for him the fatted calf. And he said unto him, in other words, the father said unto the son, and once again, it's the New Testament pronoun problem. So the father said unto him, Son, thou art ever with me, and all that I have is thine. It was meet that we shall make merry and be glad, for this thy brother was dead, and is alive again. He was lost, and is found. And that is the end of chapter 15. That is, of course, the story of the prodigal son. And I maintain that it is the Jesus doctrine, the Christian doctrine, at its best. We don't see this always. Just a chapter ago, we were told that if you transgress against the Holy Spirit, there is no forgiveness from God himself, not from other men, but from God himself. You will not be forgiven for that. Instead, you will be punished for that forever. You weren't guilty of that transgression forever. You were guilty of that. You weren't guilty of that transgression when you were a child or a teenager. You weren't guilty of it last year. It was a crime that lasted an hour, a day, a year, a human lifetime. But you're going to suffer for it, being tortured forever. So in other words, the perverse opposite of any idea of forgiveness. You are being tortured far beyond the limits, far beyond the extent that is even in any way a recompense for the crime. And we're told that over and over again, that story about the man who has an elaborate wedding banquet, and his friends don't want to come, and he gets angry. Where's the forgiveness there? Where's even the normal human understanding there? You don't want to. You're making an excuse. Either it's a valid excuse or it's a made-up excuse. Either way, I'm going to take it in good stride. If a human can do that, then surely God, who is the master of the feast in that parable, can do that. But no. But here we have the essence, I believe, the heart of Christianity at its best, which is no lost causes. None. You are not a lost cause. You can offend against your Father all that you can in the world. You can take everything that he's ever given you, everything that he ever would have given you in the future, squander it all, and come back begging. And he'll not only take you back, he'll be overjoyed to see you, and will reconcile you with those who might think he is treating you too well. That is marvelous. And that note, I should hasten to add, in all charity, that note also crops up throughout Luke and throughout the rest of the Gospels. It's not that it's a rarity. I just think there's a weird schizophrenia at the heart of this doctrine. On the one hand is a very Jerusalem temple, a very rabbinical stress of weighing balances, evening out scales, portioning out vengeance, seeking to right wrongs. And on the other side of that is something new, something that is still shockingly new. I've often referred to it in these read-alongs of the Gospels as inhuman. I don't mean that as an insult. I mean that that other strand of the heart of Christian doctrine really does seem like it's not coming from a human source. And it's wonderfully bracing. It's uplifting. The story of the prodigal son is uplifting, very much so. I think that all of us at one point or another in our lives have been in the position of that older brother and thought, why is this person getting all the breaks when I'm doing all the work and never getting anything? And I think a lot of us, especially as we get older, have been in the position of the father that has his heart broken and still hopes, just does not give in to anger or thoughts of retribution. But although some of us have been the older brother and some of us have been the father in this story, I think the eternal appeal of the story of the prodigal son is that we have all been that son. We've all been the prodigal and reached the bottom and received, if we're lucky, a forbearance, a forgiveness, a charity, a generosity that we no longer deserve. We'll work to deserve it forever afterwards, but we didn't deserve it in that moment. We were willing to just crawl. And instead, we were lifted up. You put shoes on your feet, rings on your fingers. Uh, I think we've all been there. I think that's the appeal, the eternal appeal of this story. I love it. Absolutely love it. I think it's one of the high points of the Gospel according to St. Luke. We will be moving on from here. As you know, if you're counting chapters, we are gradually approaching the end. The writer has already struck the bell note of the word Jerusalem. And Jesus has already been explicitly warned that the Pharisees he's been warned by people who know that the Pharisees want ill for you. Those elements are steadily moving. We're getting all of this elaboration, and I love it, but the story is slowly moving on. So we will move with it. I will adjourn for now, and we'll reconvene for the next chapter, and I'll see you then. Thank you, BookTube.